The air in the rebel hideout was thick with the smell of oil and burnt metal, the low hum of clockwork devices filling every corner. Elian stood over the large table that served as their war room, his fingers tracing the delicate lines of a sprawling map dotted with glowing runes and tiny mechanical markers. The faces around him were grim, etched with the strain of endless preparation and the weight of an uncertain future. Sylvan, the battle-hardened leader of the resistance, leaned forward, his voice low but edged with urgency. "We can't afford another misstep. The Chronox forces are growing stronger every day. Our window is closing." Joran, the once skeptical city guard captain, now allied with the rebels, shook his head slowly. "We need to be cautious. The Chronox clockwork sentinels are no mere machines, they adapt. Charging blindly will only get us slaughtered." A tense silence followed, broken only by the soft ticking of a nearby repaired timepiece. Elian glanced between the two men, sensing the fragile cracks forming within his own ranks. "We must find a way to unite," he said quietly. "Our strength lies not just in numbers, but in our resolve and ingenuity." Across the city, in the cramped confines of her workshop, Mira labored under flickering candlelight. Her hands moved deftly, weaving strands of forbidden clockwork magic into a complex device. The air shimmered faintly as gears spun without physical contact, guided by the ethereal currents of arcane energy. Exhaustion tugged at her limbs, but the fierce determination in her eyes refused to waver. "If this works," she whispered to herself, "we might stand a chance against the Chronox forces." Her breakthrough was more than a new weapon. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to the rebels' ability to harness the very forces that had long enslaved their city. Yet, with every success came a cost. Her body weakened, the magic exacting a toll that only deepened the stakes of their rebellion. Meanwhile, far beyond the city's fortified walls, the Chronox stood atop a towering spire, his form a shifting amalgam of brass gears and glowing clock faces. The mask of interlocking cogs obscured his features, but the cold precision of his gaze was unmistakable. Before him, rows upon rows of clockwork sentinels stood motionless, their metallic limbs poised for action. As the storm-darkened sky rumbled overhead, the mechanical army came to life, a symphony of clinks, whirs, and metallic footsteps echoing ominously across the barren landscape. The Chronox voice, a mechanical hiss layered with ancient authority, cut through the noise. "The time for patience has ended. The city shall be reclaimed and order restored." Back within the city, Elian wandered through the silent streets beneath a canopy of stars. The faint ticking of distant clocks seemed to sync with his own heartbeat, a reminder of the fragile balance that held the world together. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering in the glow of enchanted lanterns. He paused near the central square, where a massive clock tower loomed like a sentinel watching over the city. His thoughts drifted to the sacrifices made and the battles yet to come. The alliances forged in the crucible of rebellion were delicate, and the cost of failure unimaginable. "We stand on the brink," he murmured to the night, "but if we fall now, all hope is lost." As dawn approached, the city braced itself. The gathering storm was no longer distant. It was at their doorstep. Elian, Mira, Sylvan, and their allies prepared to face the overwhelming might of the Chronarch and his mechanical gods. The coming conflict would test not only their strength and cunning, but the very essence of free will against destiny's relentless march. And in the heart of it all, the ticking never ceased, a relentless reminder that time was both their prison and their weapon. The battle for the hours had begun, and the fate of the city hung in the balance. The tension in the rebel camp was palpable as leaders convened for a final strategy meeting. Sylvan paced restlessly, his boots clicking against the cold stone floor, while Jorin stood with arms crossed, his skeptical gaze never leaving Elian. Mira's frail form sat hunched over her latest creation, the soft glow of enchanted gears illuminating her determined face. Our intelligence reports confirm the Chronarch is mobilizing his full force, Sylvan said grimly. His clockwork sentinels have grown more numerous and unpredictable. Elian nodded. Mira, how soon can your new devices be ready for deployment? She looked up, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. I've managed to integrate forbidden magic into the mechanisms. They can disrupt the Sentinel's synchronization, but it's risky. The magic drains me quickly. Risk or no, it's our best chance, Elian declared. We must trust in each other, even if doubts linger within our ranks. Jorin stepped forward cautiously. I still question the wisdom of trusting Sylvan's faction entirely. The city guard has seen enough betrayal. Sylvan's eyes narrowed. And yet, here you stand, aligned against the Chronarch. Our goals are one and the same, despite our differences. The room fell silent, the unspoken tensions simmering beneath the surface. Elian raised his hand for calm. We can't afford division. The Chronarch thrives on it. We must present a united front, or we are doomed before the battle begins. Outside, the first rays of sunlight pierced the gloom, casting long shadows across the city. The gathering storm was no longer a metaphor, it was real, and it was coming. Elian's gaze hardened as he prepared to lead his people into the uncertain future. Time was running out, and the dance between fate and freedom was about to reach its crescendo. The chapter closes with Elian standing atop the city's walls, watching the horizon where dark clouds swirled like the gears of a massive clock. The distant sound of marching sentinels and the whispered prayers of rebels alike filled the air. This is our moment, Elian thought. No matter the cost, we will face the storm together. And as the city held its breath, the endless tick of time echoed on, relentless and unyielding. The air in the workshop had grown thick with an almost tangible tension, the steady ticking of clocks now punctuated by an unsettling hum that vibrated through every gear and cog. Elian stood at the edge of the city's oldest plaza, his gaze fixed on a phenomenon that defied all his understanding, a shimmering rift in the fabric of time itself. The air before him rippled as if the world's very essence had been stretched thin, revealing glimpses of moments long past and those yet to come. Beside him, Myra's hands flew deftly over a cluster of delicate instruments, her brow furrowed in concentration. The temporal currents here are unstable, she whispered, eyes reflecting the eerie blue glow emanating from her device. If we don't act quickly, this rift could tear the entire city apart. Elian swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. How did this happen? He asked, his voice barely audible over the strange symphony of ticking and humming. The curse is straining. Talia's voice broke through the murmurs, calm yet edged with urgency. The archivist stepped forward, her pale fingers clutching a tome covered in arcane symbols. The mechanical god's influence is weakening the seams of reality. This rift is the first visible sign. A sudden pulse from the rift sent a shiver down Elian's spine. For a moment, the world around him twisted and bent. The cobblestones beneath his feet flickered between new and old, and the faces of passers-by blurred into ghostly echoes. He felt himself pulled forward, teetering on the edge of a dizzying abyss where time lost all meaning. Elian Myra's voice cut sharply through the disorienting haze, grounding him. Focus. We need to stabilize the flow before it collapses entirely. Drawing on every lesson from Master Kaldor and the secrets gleaned from forbidden archives, Elian reached deep into his knowledge of clockwork and magic. Together with Myra and Talia, they combined intricate mechanical devices with ancient incantations, weaving a fragile barrier around the rift. The air crackled as the swirling currents slowed, the chaotic pulse becoming a rhythmic beat once more. But the calm was deceptive. As the rift's edges sealed, Elian caught a glimpse of the mechanical god's colossal forms, wrought from shining gears and luminous clock faces, their eyes glowing with an ancient fury. They watched, waiting, their power a looming threat that no device or spell could fully contain. Outside the plaza, Sylvan rallied the rebels, his sharp voice cutting through the mounting tension. Hold the line. The Chronarch's sentinels will exploit any weakness. Inside, the friends felt the fragile victory weigh heavy. The rift was closed, but at a cost. The city's heartbeat faltered briefly, as if uncertain of its new rhythm. Elian's heart pounded with a mix of exhilaration and dread. The curse's grip was loosening, but the battle for time itself was far from over. As twilight deepened, Elian looked once more at the now still rift, a silent promise forming in his mind. The city's fate, tangled in the ticking of countless clocks, rested on his shoulders. And somewhere beyond the veil of time, the mechanical gods stirred, their endless vigilance far from complete. This is only the beginning, Elian murmured, determination hardening his voice. We must be ready for whatever comes next. The city exhaled beneath the watchful gaze of its enchanted timepieces, poised on the edge of an uncertain future where every second held the fragile hope of freedom. Elian's fingers trembled as they brushed against the ancient timepiece lying dormant on the dust-coated table within the forbidden archives. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment, oil, and a faint metallic tense that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the city itself. The dim light filtering through narrow stained glass windows cast kaleidoscopic patterns on the floor, each shard shimmering with hues of amber and sapphire, as if the very essence of time was fractured and scattered across the chamber. He had spent countless hours poring over faded manuscripts and brittle scrolls, yet none had prepared him for the moment when the clockwork artifact responded to his touch. A low hum, barely perceptible at first, grew steadily into a symphony of ticking gears and harmonious chimes that resonated deep within his bones. The room seemed to dissolve around him, the walls melting into streams of molten brass and glowing cogs that spun endlessly in a dance older than memory. Suddenly, Elian found himself transported beyond the boundaries of the physical realm, standing amidst a colossal forge where the very fabric of time was shaped and molded. Towering figures loomed ahead immense mechanical gods, their forms composed of interlocking gears, shimmering clock faces, and limbs that moved with the fluidity of celestial orbits. Their eyes shone with incandescent light, reflecting the endless march of seconds and centuries alike. In awe, Elian watched as the first clockmakers, the ancestors of his craft, labored beside these titanic beings. Their hands, calloused yet reverent, wove intricate mechanisms infused with magic and willpower. A covenant was forged in that luminous forge, a desperate pact born from a city teetering on the edge of collapse. To stave off ruin, humanity had bound their life force to the eternal ticking of the gods' hearts, trading freedom for survival. The vision deepened, revealing the paradox of their existence. The mechanical gods were not merely guardians, but jailers. Their relentless ticking, a constant reminder of the chains that held the city in thrall. Elian felt a surge of conflicting emotions, hope, despair, anger, and a profound empathy for the generations shackled by a fate written in gears and magic. Abruptly, the vision dissolved, and Elian collapsed back onto the cold stone floor of the archives. Talia, the archivist, knelt beside him, her sharp eyes softened by concern. Her layered robes rustled quietly, adorned with faded clock motifs that mirrored the relics around them. "You've seen them," she whispered, her voice steady yet laced with a warning. "The mechanical gods, their pact is older than any record, older than the city itself. Knowledge of their origins is a heavy burden, Elian. It changes everything." Elian nodded, struggling to find words as the weight of revelation settled over him. "If we break the curse," he murmured, "do we risk unraveling the very fabric that holds us all together?" Talia's gaze was unyielding. "Freedom has a price, and sometimes the cost is greater than we can bear. But to remain chained is no true life." Days passed in a blur as Elian wrestled with the newfound truth. The visions had shattered the simplicity of his quest, revealing layers of complexity and sacrifice he had not anticipated. The mechanical gods were not villains. They were remnants of a desperate salvation, embodiments of both protection and oppression. One evening, as twilight bathed the city in hues of molten gold and bruised purple, Elian ascended to the highest tower overlooking the sprawling labyrinth of clockwork spires and winding streets. The air was crisp, filled with the mingled scents of burning oil and distant rain. Below, the city pulsed with the steady tick of countless enchanted timepieces, a symphony of measured life. The mechanical god's presence seemed to linger in the fading light, a silent chorus of gears and whispers echoing through the air. Elian's heart beat in time with the eternal ticking, the weight of destiny pressing upon him. He whispered to the wind, "If fate has bound us, then I will be the hand that reshapes it." The path forward was fraught with uncertainty. The knowledge of the mechanical god's origins illuminated the fragility of the balance between control and freedom. Yet within that delicate tension lay the hope for a new future where the city might rise unshackled or fall into deeper shadows. Elian turned from the precipice, his resolve hardened like tempered steel. The battle for time itself was far from over, and the visions had only just begun to reveal the true nature of the war he must wage. As the night deepened, the ticking of the city's clocks grew louder, a relentless reminder that time, in all its complexity, would neither wait nor forgive. And somewhere, hidden within the labyrinthine gears of fate, the mechanical gods watched and waited, their eternal vigil unbroken. The workshop was cloaked in shadows, the only light coming from the softly glowing gears and the flickering lanterns that lined the walls. Myra sat hunched over a small workbench, her slender fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted a delicate mechanism infused with the eerie blue glow of forbidden clockwork magic. The faint hum of the enchanted gears filled the silence, a sound both mesmerizing and unsettling, as if the very essence of time was being stretched and pulled within this tiny contraption. Elian stood nearby, his soot-smudged hands clenched tightly at his sides. He watched her with a mixture of awe and growing concern. Myra's usually sharp eyes were clouded with exhaustion, the streaks of silver in her dark hair seeming to glimmer even more in the dim light, a visible testament to the toll the magic was taking on her. "Myra," Elian said softly, stepping closer, "you don't have to push yourself so far. We can find another way." She looked up at him, her gaze steady despite the weariness etched into her face. "There is no other way, Elian. The curse is too strong. If we want to break it, I have to master this magic." Her voice was resolute, but Elian could see the pain beneath the surface. The forbidden magic was not just a tool. It was a burden she carried alone, one that chipped away at her strength with every use. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the steady ticking of clocks scattered throughout the workshop. The sound, usually a comforting rhythm to Elian, now felt oppressive, a relentless reminder of the time slipping away from them and from Mira herself. Suddenly, Mira's hands faltered. The glowing gears slipped, spinning wildly before settling with a harsh click. She gasped, clutching her chest as a wave of dizziness overcame her. Elian rushed to her side, catching her as she collapsed onto the worn wooden bench. "Mira," he exclaimed, panic rising in his chest. "Stay with me." Her breath was shallow, sweat glistening on her pale skin. The magic that empowered her was also draining her, a cruel paradox that Elian found unbearable to witness. "I'm fine," she whispered, forcing a weak smile. "This is the price we pay." Elian's heart ached. How could he protect her when the very power they needed was breaking her down? He felt a surge of guilt, wondering if pushing her was a betrayal of their friendship. Days blurred into nights as Myra continued to push herself, each use of forbidden magic leaving her more fragile. Elian devoted himself to finding ways to ease her burden, scouring ancient texts and experimenting with countermeasures. But the curse's grip was relentless. One evening, under the flickering lantern light, Myra confided in Elian. "I wasn't always like this," she began, her voice trembling as she recounted the early days of her training. "At first, it was just curiosity, a desire to understand the clockwork magic better. But then I saw what it could do, how it could bend time, protect us, give us a chance." She paused, swallowing hard. "But every time I use it, I lose a little more of myself. The magic isn't just power, it's a debt, and I'm afraid I'm running out of time to pay it." Elian reached out, taking her hand gently. "We'll get through this together, I promise." As the city's clocks chimed midnight, marking the passage of another hour in the endless dance of time, Elian felt a renewed determination. The burden they carried was heavy, but the fight for freedom was worth every sacrifice. Myra's struggle was a stark reminder of the cost of rebellion, but also a beacon of hope. The workshop, once a place of quiet tinkering and discovery, had become a battleground of wills and wills and wills, a crucible where their friendship, their resolve, and their very lives were tested against the unyielding march of time. Elian knew the road ahead was fraught with peril. The price of magic was steep, but the price of surrender was far greater. As he cradled the fragile timepiece Myra had been working on, inscribed with ancient runes promising salvation, he vowed to protect her with every fiber of his being. The city outside continued to pulse with the steady tick of countless clocks, each heartbeat synchronized to the destiny they sought to rewrite. And within the shadows of the workshop, two souls stood united against the coming storm, ready to face the unknown with courage tempered by sacrifice. But even as hope flickered, the question lingered in Elian's mind. How much could one give before there was nothing left to hold on to? The siege of time had come with the cold inevitability of a clock's final chime. From the moment the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in bruised hues of twilight, the rebel stronghold braced itself for an onslaught unlike any before. Elian stood atop the fortified walls, the wind tugging at his soot-streaked hair, eyes sharp beneath the flickering torchlight. Around him, the air thrummed with the synchronized ticking of 1,000 enchanted clocks embedded in the very stones and mechanisms of their sanctuary. Each tick carried a weight heavier than mere seconds. It was a heartbeat of resistance. Beside him, Mira was a flurry of motion and quiet intensity. Her nimble fingers danced over the controls of a massive temporal disruptor, a device cobbled together from blueprints stolen from forbidden archives and her own ingenious modifications. The contraption pulsed with a spectral glow, casting shifting shadows across her determined face. "Elian," she murmured, "once this starts, there's no turning back. The strain will be immense." He nodded, the gravity of their endeavor settling deep within him. "We have no choice. If the Chronok breaks through tonight, the curse tightens its grip forever." The first assault came like a thunderclap. From the east, the mechanical sentinels marched with relentless precision, their gleaming limbs reflecting the torchlight as their clock faces glowed malevolently. The air was rent by the grinding of gears and the shrill whistle of temporal distortions wrenched open by the enemy's machines. Elian's voice rose above the cacophony, rallying the defenders. "Hold the line, focus the disruptors on the southern gate. Mira, how long until you can activate the time dilation fields?" "Minutes at best," she answered, her voice tight. "I'll need every ounce of strength." Sylvan, the battle-hardened rebel leader, moved among the fighters like a living engine of inspiration, his roar cutting through the din for freedom, for the city. The clash was brutal. Steel limbs met improvised weapons. Sparks flew as clockwork blades cleaved through enchanted barriers. The rebels fought with the desperation of those with everything to lose. Elian's mind raced, orchestrating the defenses with the precision of a master clockmaker. Here, a burst of slowed time gave archers the edge to pick off sentinels. There, a brief acceleration of seconds allowed healers to mend wounds before they could worsen. But the siege was not merely a battle of Bronnet, it was a war of time itself. Elian's greatest challenge was bending the flow of hours without fracturing the delicate balance that sustained their refuge. Each temporal shift risked tearing the fabric of reality, a peril he accepted silently. Myra's face was pale under the strain, sweat glistening as she maintained the temporal disruptor's pulse. "I can hold it for a little longer," she whispered, voice cracking, "but I fear this magic is draining more than I can give." "Then rest when you can," Elian urged, though the words felt hollow amidst the storm. The Chronok's forces adapted swiftly. The sentinels coordinated with cold efficiency, probing for weaknesses, exploiting every crack in the defenses. At one point, a wave of temporal distortion swept through a breach, threatening to unravel the rebels' carefully crafted time bubbles. Elian dashed to the mechanism controlling the flow, hands moving with practiced speed. He recalibrated gears and levers, restoring order to the chaos just in time. "Not today," he muttered. As hours passed, the siege ground on. The rebels' morale was tested, but so too was the Chronok's resolve. The city outside the walls began to tremble, the immense power of the mechanical gods stirring in restless anticipation. Time itself seemed to quiver on the edge of unraveling. In the midst of the fray, Joran, the grizzled city guard captain who had once hunted them, fought alongside the rebels. His presence was a balm and a reminder of the fragile alliances forged in desperate times. "You've come a long way, Elian," he grunted during a brief lull, wiping grime from his brow. "I never thought I'd stand with you, but today the city needs more than old loyalties." Elian offered a rare smile, though his heart weighed heavy. "Neither did I, Joran. Neither did I." The climax of the siege came as the Chronarch himself appeared on the battlefield, a looming colossus of shifting gears and glowing clock faces. His voice, modulated through interlocking cogs, echoed across the fortress. "You defy the tide of time, Elian, but time is relentless. It will consume you as it has consumed all before." Elian met the gaze behind the mask, unflinching. "Time is ours to shape, not merely to endure." With a signal, the rebels unleashed their final gambit. Mira channeled her remaining strength into a massive clockwork cannon, firing a beam of condensed temporal energy that rippled through the enemy ranks, freezing sentinels mid-stride and fracturing the Chronoc's advance. The city held its breath, teetering on the brink of collapse or salvation. As the echoes of battle faded into a tense silence, Eliane knew this victory was but a prelude. The war for time and freedom was far from over. Yet, amid the smoke and ticking gears, a fragile hope flickered, an ember kindled by courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding will to rewrite destiny. "Rest now," Eliane whispered to Myra as she slumped against the cold stone, exhausted but alive. "Tomorrow, we face whatever the clock decides to throw at us next." Above, the enchanted clocks resumed their steady tick, a heartbeat of resistance in a city bound by fate but yearning for freedom. The siege of time had tested them all, but Eliane and his allies stood ready to meet the endless march of hours with defiance and hope.